Well, as happens from time to time, I had a little bit of a mishap with my Corsair. Of course, I got this beautiful single-bladed, very efficient propeller now. So yeah, essentially what happened is things got a bit squirrely. Plane went overhead. I sort of got it back over the field again, but by the time I got it over the field, I was coming down, pulled out just in time to do a very nice belly landing with landing gear up. So I've busted off the prop, so we're going to have to replace 3 prop blades. You can see on my landing gear cover that this one is up a little bit higher, and that's essentially this wire down in here that is bent just a little bit, so I'm going to have to pull that out and replace it. And I've lost my tail wheel. Fortunately, a fellow at the club found it for me, and so we're going to see about putting that on. Now, I'm getting started with the tail wheel, and the first thing I noticed was that as I was pulling out the screws, these are nice and accessible, but these ones at the back, this part of the tail hook, is interfering with it. So we have to remove the tail hook, and then we can get at the screws there. We just have busted that off cleanly. So here's the tail wheel, and so that just busted off cleanly. So we're going to drill a hole in there, drill a hole in this, and hopefully put that back together. Okay, so we've got to get this tail hook off. So we've got that screw out there. This one out on this side as well. Okay, so that's come off. Now I can just barely get at these screws here. A skinnier screwdriver would work a little bit better. I'm having a hard time getting onto those things. Okay, so you've got an arm on the end of it, which I'm going to end up coming out. Okay, I can't turn it from here. Normally I would do that. We will do it with this. So hopefully we'll be able to get a hold of that again. So here's our shaft. We've got a screw on the end of it. So it looks like we'll be able to glue on the tail wheel. Okay, that looks like it there. You'd expect the arm to be perpendicular to the tail wheel. So I'm just looking to see which way it has come off. And it looks like that's it there. So we're going to drill those 2 things. We're going to glue it together. Probably use some epoxy. The glue is going to be a little bit of a problem down here in the bottom, but we will carve that off as needed, and hopefully we'll be in good shape. Now, in repairing this, I'm going to use a piece of wire to put inside there. And this piece of wire is 62 thousandths of an inch. 62 thousandths, and I've got a drill which is about 62, 63 thousandths, depending on where you measure it. So, looks like that should be about right. So, I'm going to put this in the vise. So, we've drilled through the base part. I drilled in about 3/4 of an inch up into the shaft. Ran a piece of wire in there, put the glue on it. Noted that for this thing to be able to have the travel, it needs to be over on that side. You can always reverse a servo, but turning it back this way, the arm is hitting on the edge, so it must have been that way. So anyway, we'll let that harden up, and then we'll clean up that edge down in here, and then we can take off the control arm, reassemble it, and it should be fine. Well, glue is now dry down in there, so we are going to take the crank off the end of this guy. Put down the screw, take off the end, and we're going to see what it feels like in here. Okay. Feels reasonably okay, just like it is. You know, it's rather stiff regardless. I just polish that up a tiny bit with some sandpaper. Okay, we're going to just take some 240 grit emery cloth, dark paper here, and just smooth it up a bit. Make sure that there's nothing that is going to cause it to catch. Dryer in here. Yep. Very nice. Okay. So we put our horn on again. Okay, so this is the back here. That's the back, that's going to the back, and the horn is on the port side of the airplane. And that fits in there very nicely, okay? So I'm going to attach that for a start. So keep track of the screw that came out of there. And we get that back in. Okay, so you'll note that's the way it goes, with it upside down, with a wheel trailing backwards. That's at the back, and the horn is on the port side of the aircraft. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is to fish out the rod that goes onto, and we'll see what we can do there. Now in fishing out the rod, that control rod that's in there, I can't see it, but I know it's back there. So I've got this little bit of wire that I'm using, and voila, there it is. Okay, so I can now see it. This is going to be going like that. So I'm going to hook it onto the outside hole of the thing. Get the outside hole on there. So it's now hooked on. Get my fishy wire back out. I can. There we go. Okay, so that's on there like that. Okay, and just to verify that we do have rudder, yeah, that's okay. That's left rudder, and it's going that way, so Yeah, that's left and right. That looks good. Okay, we thread our tail hook back onto there where it goes. Push it down in place. Get our screws that hold it down. This screwdriver fits a little bit better where it has access to them. And the other screwdriver I'll use where we don't have as much clearance. Okay, so this is my skinny screwdriver, which can get into that little spot there. This one doesn't have the magnetism that I've developed on the other one. But nonetheless, we can get them in there. One thing that I've discovered with my P51 is in terms of having a more controlled takeoff, you want less steering on your tail wheel than what you have on the rudder. So you want the rudder to be the commanding force as you're taking off, and that way when the tail wheel lifts off of the ground, it doesn't particularly affect anything. Okay, so we've got the control horn in the farthest out position on the tail wheel to give it the minimum amount of travel, and you can see we've got probably pretty similar angle on the rudder as to what we've got on the tail wheel. So if anything, I would like less travel on that tail wheel, but nonetheless for what we're working with here with that control horn, we've got it to where we've got the minimum movement at the moment. So that's the best we can do there. We could also have a look at the servo to see what we could do at that end. Okay, well I'm trying to sort out exactly what's happening with these retracts. The first thing I note, I've got the transmitter going and I've got it all hooked up, bound and everything. And if you can hear that noise, this servo over here is making some noise. Now, I'm pushing and pulling just a little bit on the flaps and then on the aileron just to make sure that's not it. But I think this servo here has got something that's binding up on it. Pulling out on the flap door a little bit, that stopped. That seems to be okay. Now it's making noise again. Pulling out on the flap door, it stopped. And it still stopped. Now there it goes again. Pulling out on it, that stopped. So it seems like there's something that isn't quite all the way there. Now I'm looking at these doors compared to those doors. These ones aren't open as far, but they also don't close as far, as you'll see in a moment. Okay. The outer one is up a little bit more vertical. But it's got to clear this, and you'll notice there's actually a different linkage. You see that this one is on the outside hole and this one is on one hole inside. Of course that would be the case on both sides, and that's would seem to indicate that this one has to travel farther, and I guess so, because it should be up higher and it should travel farther. So the question then is, when I flick the switch on the transmitter and the wheels go down, you'll see that these doors don't close quite all the way. I can get them down, but that's not quite right. And you can see these ones didn't really want to open all the way. So maybe it's loose on the shaft there. We'll have a look. And I'm still getting that chattering noise from the other side, so I need to investigate that. Well, it's very difficult to see, but I've figured out what's happened here. Where that steel rod, the steel rod that goes across here, it's supposed to go into a little hole right there, and it popped out of the hole. So I need to get that back into the hole, and then I think we'll be right. Okay, we finally were able to get it. So the shaft here needed to get into the hole there. So I tried it a number of different ways, pushing and pulling and whatnot. But what I finally did is I moved the shaft around to where it was on your side of the hole. I got a hold of the shaft with the needle nose pliers, and then pinching with my hand between the leading edge and the shaft, I was able to bend it enough to shorten it to get it in there. Now it looks like this whole assembly here, it's a big piece of plastic that's glued right onto the foam. And they probably put that shaft on there before they put it in place. So I don't think there's any other way to get at it. But nonetheless, that is in place, and so now let's see whether it works. By the way, I'm not hearing any noise now, so that part of it's good. So that's the landing gear. Voila! Landing gear close pretty well the way they used to. This little plaque here, that's movable. And that's right up against the landing gear in there. So that's pretty well the way that they used to operate. Looks like that's not quite up as far as it used to be, but nonetheless it seems to work. Okay, I think we're going to call that good. So that pretty well does it for our Corsair. Hey, it's all ready to go again. Well, pretty near. We just need to replace those blades on the prop. I've got those on order, and we'll be flying it again very soon. So I trust that this has been helpful to you as you sort out things with your own planes. To be sure to subscribe. Just have a look at the little thing below. We got a link to other videos, as well as that round bit there that allows you to be able to subscribe to our channel. As you do that, then you'll find these helpful videos are right at hand, and you can just look up whatever you need when you need it. So I'm RC Jim signing off. You have a great day and enjoy your flying.